The dust devil twisted across the trail just as Jake Fletcher's horse began to slow, and through the golden haze of sunset, he saw her. A figure in a torn riding dress collapsed against a boulder with her dark hair spilling over her shoulders like ink on parchment. She lifted her head as his shadow fell across her, and when their eyes met she whispered words that would change everything. "I think I was finding you." Jake dismounted in one smooth motion, his boots hitting the hard, packed Wyoming earth as he took in the scene. It was September 1878, and the trail between Wheatland and the neighboring ranches had grown dangerous lately with bandits and wildlife both causing trouble. But this woman looked like she had been out here for hours, maybe longer. Her lips were cracked, her face sunburned, and her green eyes held a mixture of relief and something else he could not quite name. "Easy there," he said, pulling his canteen from his saddle. "How long have you been out here?" She took the water with trembling hands, drinking deeply before answering. "Since morning. My horse threw me when a rattlesnake spooked her. She ran off with everything I had except this dress and one boot." She gestured to her feet, and sure enough, one foot was bare and bloodied. Jake knelt beside her, his weathered hands gentle as he examined her ankle. It was swollen but probably not broken. He was 32 years old, had been riding these trails since he was 15, and had seen plenty of injuries in his time. This woman was lucky he had decided to take the long way home from Wheatland instead of the main road. "What's your name?" he asked, pulling a bandana from his pocket and wrapping it carefully around her injured foot. Lily Jensen." Her voice was stronger now, the water reviving her. "I was traveling to Wheatland to meet my aunt. She wrote that she needed help with her boarding house. I came all the way from Pennsylvania." Jake felt something shift in his chest at the way she said it, like she was explaining herself to the world. "Well, Miss Jensen, I am Jake Fletcher. I have a ranch about 5 miles from here. Can you ride?" "I grew up riding," she said, then smiled despite everything. "Though you would not know it from today." He helped her to her feet, steadying her when she swayed. She was tall for a woman, probably 5'7" or 8, and even disheveled and sun-worn she was striking. There was determination in the set of her jaw, intelligence in those green eyes. Jake found himself wanting to know everything about her. "We need to get you somewhere safe before full dark," he said, leading her to his horse, a steady bay mare named Bella. "Your aunt's place, you said. In Wheatland." "Martha Jensen's boarding house on 2nd Street. Jake knew it. Martha was a formidable woman who had run that boarding house for a decade, ever since her husband died in a mining accident. He helped Lily mount, then swung up behind her, acutely aware of how she fit against him, how she smelled like sage and desperation, and something floral underneath. The ride to Wheatland took almost an hour, and as they traveled, Lily told him about Pennsylvania, about her father who had died the previous winter, about how her stepmother had made it clear there was no longer room for her in that house. She spoke matter-of-factly about heartbreak, about loss, but Jake heard the pain underneath. "Martha is my father's sister," Lily explained. "We exchanged letters after he passed. She said she could use help running the boarding house, that Wheatland was a good town with good people. So I packed what I could carry and took the train as far as Cheyenne, then hired a horse for the rest." "That's a brave thing," Jake said quietly, "coming all this way alone." "Or foolish," she replied, but there was warmth in her voice now. "Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. I truly think I might have died out there if you had not come along." "Jake," he corrected. "And I am glad I took the long trail today. Usually I cut through the north pasture, but something made me go this way instead." He felt her turn slightly to look at him, felt the weight of her gaze. "Maybe we were both meant to be on this trail tonight." By the time they reached Wheatland, the stars were beginning to emerge. The town was small but thriving, with a main street lined with businesses, a church at one end and a school at the other. Martha's boarding house was a tall two-story building with a wide porch and lamplight glowing in the windows. Martha herself burst through the door when she heard the horse. She was a stout woman in her 50s with iron-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. Lily. Good Lord, child, I was about to send out a search party. You were supposed to arrive this morning. Jake helped Lily down, and Martha immediately swept her niece into her arms. Then she turned those sharp eyes on Jake. Jake Fletcher, I should have known. You have a habit of finding strays, do you not? Yes, madam, he said with a slight smile. This one was in rough shape, though, lost her horse, injured her foot. She will need tending. Martha softened. Come inside, both of you. Lily needs food and medicine. And Jake, you look like you could use a meal yourself. The boarding house was warm and clean, with flowered wallpaper and sturdy furniture. Martha had 4 other boarders, all men who worked various jobs in town, and they were just finishing supper when Jake and Lily entered. Martha shooed them out and set about caring for her niece, cleaning the cuts on her foot, applying salve, and wrapping it properly while Jake waited in the front parlor. When Lily emerged an hour later, she looked transformed. She had bathed and changed into a simple blue dress that brought out her eyes, and her long dark hair was braided over one shoulder. She moved carefully, favoring her injured foot, but her color was better and the life had returned to her face. Thank you again, she said, sitting down across from Jake. Martha told me the trail has been dangerous lately. You probably saved my life. Anyone would have done the same, Jake said, though they both knew that was not entirely true. Plenty of men might have ridden right past, or worse, taken advantage of a vulnerable woman alone. Martha says you have a ranch. Cattle and horses. It is not the biggest spread in Wyoming, but it is mine. I built it up over 15 years from nothing. Lily leaned forward, genuinely interested. That must be incredibly difficult work. It is, but it is good work, honest. He paused, twirling his hat in his hands. What about you? What did you do in Pennsylvania? I helped my father run a bookshop. After he died, my stepmother sold it. I loved that shop. The sadness in her voice was palpable. But that is behind me now. Martha says she needs help with the bookkeeping and cooking here, and I am grateful for the opportunity. They talked for another hour, the conversation flowing easily despite them being strangers. Martha brought coffee and sat with them for a while, clearly pleased to see her niece settling in. But when Jake finally rose to leave, promising to check on Lily the next time he was in town, he felt a strange reluctance to go. At the door, Lily caught his hand. Will you really come back? I will, he promised, and he meant it. The next 2 weeks passed quickly for Jake. He had cattle to move, fences to mend, a barn roof that needed repairs before winter came. He employed 2 ranch hands, brothers named Thomas and Robert, who were good workers but not much for conversation. The work was hard and endless, as it always was, but Jake found his thoughts drifting to Lily more often than they should. He made excuses to go into Wheatland. He needed supplies. He needed to talk to the bank about a loan. He needed to check on a horse he was thinking of buying. Each time he found himself at Martha's boarding house, and each time Lily smiled when she saw him. She was settling into life in Wheatland. Her foot healed quickly, and she proved invaluable to Martha. The boarding house had never been so well organized, the books never so neatly kept. The boarders raved about the meals, which had improved dramatically with Lily's help in the kitchen. But more than her skills, it was her warmth that was winning people over. She had a way of making everyone feel seen and heard. You are courting her, Martha said bluntly one afternoon when Jake stopped by. Lily was out shopping, and Martha had cornered him in the parlor. I am being friendly, Jake said, but even he could hear how weak that sounded. Martha gave him a look that could cut steel. "Jake Fletcher, I have known you since you were a scrappy 20-year-old trying to homestead that land. You are a good man, one of the best, but my niece has been through a lot. If you are not serious, leave her be." Jake met her eyes steadily. "I am serious. I have been serious since the moment I saw her on that trail. Then court her properly. None of this just dropping by nonsense. Ask her to dinner. Take her to the church social next month. Let people know your intentions are honorable." So Jake did exactly that. The next time he came to town, he brought flowers, wildflowers he had picked from the meadow near his ranch. Lily's face lit up when she saw them. "They are beautiful," she said, burying her nose in the blooms. "Would you have dinner with me tonight?" Jake asked, his heart hammering. "The hotel has a decent restaurant. I would love that." That dinner was the first of many. They talked about everything, their childhoods, their dreams, their losses. Lily spoke about her father's bookshop, about how she used to lose herself in stories as a girl. Jake told her about building his ranch, about the harsh winters and the spring calves, about the satisfaction of creating something lasting. "You ever get lonely out there?" Lily asked one evening as they walked along the quiet streets of Wheatland. "Sometimes," Jake admitted. "It is a lot of empty space for one person. I always thought I would marry eventually, have a family to fill that house, but the right woman never came along, until now." Lily stopped walking, turning to face him. They were standing beneath a street lamp, moths fluttering around the light. "Jake, I know it has only been a month," he said quickly. "I know we should take more time. But Lily, I have never felt like this before. When I am not with you, I am thinking about you. When I am with you, everything feels right." "I feel it too," she whispered. "It frightens me a little." "How much I feel it." He cupped her face in his hands, rough palms against soft skin. "I am not going to hurt you, I promise you that." Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, and absolutely perfect. When they pulled apart, Lily was smiling. "You taste like coffee," she said. "You taste like cinnamon." They courted through September and into October. Jake taught Lily to ride properly, putting her on his gentlest mare and leading her through the trails around his ranch. She was a natural rider, just as she had claimed, and soon they were galloping across the open range together. Her laughter carried on the wind. Lily showed Jake her world too. She took him to the lending library in Wheatland, a small room attached to the general store, and helped him pick out books. Jake had never been much of a reader, but he found he enjoyed the novels Lily recommended, especially when she would curl up next to him in Martha's parlor, and they would read together in comfortable silence. They attended the church social in October, and if there had been any doubt about the seriousness of their courtship, it was dispelled that night. Jake barely left Lily's side, and when they danced together, the whole town could see how he looked at her, like she was the sun and the moon and every star besides. "You are going to marry her," Thomas said one evening at the ranch. He and Robert were eating dinner with Jake, as they often did. "I am," Jake agreed, "if she will have me." "She would be a fool not to," Robert added. "You are head over heels, boss." Jake could not argue with that. He was already planning the proposal, trying to figure out the right moment, the right words. He wanted it to be perfect, wanted Lily to know how much she meant to him. The opportunity came in early November. The weather had turned cold but not yet brutal, and Jake suggested a picnic at a spot near his ranch, a high meadow with a view of the mountains. Lily packed a basket and they rode out together, the horses moving steadily across the prairie. The meadow was as beautiful as Jake remembered, the grass golden in the late autumn sun, the mountains purple in the distance. They spread a blanket and ate sandwiches and apples, talking and laughing like they always did. But Jake was nervous, the ring box heavy in his pocket. "Lily," he said finally, taking her hand. "There is something I need to ask you." She looked at him, those green eyes so full of trust and love that it made his chest ache. "What is it?" "I know we have not known each other long, just over 2 months, but I have never been surer of anything in my life. You are the best thing that has ever happened to me. You make me laugh, you make me think, you make me want to be better. I love you more than I knew it was possible to love someone." He pulled out the ring, a simple gold band with a small diamond. It had been his grandmother's, one of the few things he had from his family back east. "Lily Jensen, will you marry me?" Tears spilled down Lily's cheeks, but she was smiling. "Yes, yes, Jake, of course I will marry you." He slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her, and it felt like the whole world was celebrating with them. The wind carried the scent of sage and pine. The sky was impossibly blue, and Jake felt happier than he had ever been. They married 3 weeks later in a small ceremony at the Wheatland church. Martha cried, though she tried to hide it. Thomas and Robert served as witnesses, along with several of Martha's boarders who had grown fond of Lily. The preacher was an elderly man named Reverend Hastings who had been in Wheatland since its founding, and he spoke about love and commitment and building a life together. Lily wore a dress that Martha had helped her sew, pale green with lace at the collar and cuffs. Jake wore his best suit, the one he kept for special occasions, and tried not to fidget with his collar. When they exchanged vows, his voice was steady and sure. "I promise to love you, protect you, and stand by you for all the days of my life," he said, looking into Lily's eyes. "I promise to be your partner, your friend, and your love, through every joy and every hardship," Lily replied. When Reverend Hastings pronounced them husband and wife, Jake kissed Lily like it was the most natural thing in the world, because it was. The wedding celebration was held at Martha's boarding house, with half the town invited. There was food and music and dancing, and Jake spun Lily around the parlor until they were both dizzy with happiness. When it was time to leave, to ride out to the ranch that would now be their home, Martha hugged Lily fiercely. "Be happy, child," she whispered. "You deserve all the happiness in the world. Thank you for everything, Aunt Martha, for giving me a place when I had nowhere to go, for welcoming me, for trusting Jake. He is a good man. You will have a good life together." The ride to the ranch was quiet, both of them tired from the long day but content. Jake kept glancing over at Lily, hardly believing she was real, that she was his wife. When they arrived at the ranch house, he insisted on carrying her over the threshold, despite her protests that she was too heavy. "You weigh nothing," he said, lifting her easily. "And this is tradition." The house was simple but well built, with a large main room that served as kitchen and living area, 2 bedrooms and a loft. Jake had spent the past week cleaning and preparing, wanting everything to be perfect for Lily. He had picked more wildflowers, now sitting in a jar on the kitchen table. He had aired out the quilts and swept the floors and made sure there was plenty of firewood stacked by the hearth. "It is wonderful," Lily said, looking around. "It feels like home already." That first night as husband and wife was tender and awkward and perfect all at once. They were both nervous, both inexperienced, but they loved each other, and that made all the difference. Afterward, lying tangled together in the big bed, Lily traced patterns on Jake's chest. "I cannot believe this is my life now," she said softly. 3 months ago I was in Pennsylvania, miserable and alone, and now I am here with you, and I have never been happier." "I keep thinking about that evening on the trail," Jake said, "how I almost took the North Pasture route. How everything could have been different, but you did not. You were there exactly when I needed you, like it was meant to be. You said something that night when I first found you. You said you thought you were finding me." Lily smiled against his skin. "I did, and I was right, was I not?" I was lost and I found you. Winter came to Wyoming with a vengeance that year. By December, the snow was piling high and the temperatures plunging below zero. Jake had prepared well, though. The cattle were in the winter pastures with access to shelter, the hay was stacked, the firewood plentiful. Thomas and Robert had their own cabin on the far edge of the property, but they stopped by regularly to help with the work. Lily adapted to ranch life with remarkable ease. She learned to milk the cow, to gather eggs from the chickens, to make bread and preserve food and 100 other tasks that kept a household running. But more than that, she brought joy to the long winter days. She read aloud in the evenings while Jake whittled or mended tack. She sang while she cooked, filling the house with music. She made the ranch house feel like a true home. They had their challenges, of course. Learning to live together, to navigate each other's habits and preferences, was an adjustment. Jake was used to solitude, to doing things his own way, and sometimes he struggled with having someone else to consider. Lily had her own adjustments, learning the rhythms of ranch life, dealing with the isolation when Jake had to be out working for long hours. They had their first real fight in January, over something small that escalated because they were both tired and cabin feverish. Jake had tracked mud through the kitchen right after Lily had spent all morning cleaning, and she had snapped at him. He had snapped back, and suddenly they were arguing about things that had nothing to do with mud. About how Jake never talked about his feelings, about how Lily was too sensitive, about a dozen small grievances that had been building. Finally, Jake stopped, took a deep breath and said, "I am sorry." "You are right, I should have taken my boots off. I was not thinking." Lily deflated, the anger draining out of her. "I am sorry too, I overreacted. I think I am just feeling cooped up." They held each other, both apologizing, both promising to do better, and they learned from it. They learned to talk before the small things became big things, to be honest about their frustrations, to remember that they were on the same side. By the time spring came, thawing the frozen earth and bringing new life to the prairie, Jake and Lily had settled into a comfortable rhythm. They worked together, played together, dreamed together. Jake started talking about expanding the herd, about maybe buying the adjoining property if it ever came up for sale. Lily planted a garden near the house, envisioning vegetables and flowers that would bloom in the summer. In April, Lily realized she was pregnant. She had suspected for a few weeks, but when she missed her second monthly cycle and the morning sickness began, she knew for certain. She was terrified and thrilled in equal measure, unsure how to tell Jake. She chose to do it over dinner one evening. She had made his favorite meal, pot roast with potatoes and carrots, and she waited until he had eaten before speaking. "Jake, I have something to tell you." He looked up, reading the seriousness in her tone. "What is it? Are you all right?" "I am fine. Better than fine, I am pregnant. We are going to have a baby." For a moment, Jake just stared at her. Then a slow smile spread across his face, transforming his usually serious features. "Truly, we are going to be parents, truly." He stood so quickly he knocked over his chair, pulling Lily into his arms and spinning her around. "I cannot believe it, a baby. Lily, this is the best news. You are happy." "Happy? I am beyond happy. I am terrified and thrilled, and I cannot wait to meet this little one." They spent the rest of the evening making plans, talking about names and where the baby would sleep and all the changes that were coming. Jake was already worrying about keeping Lily safe, about making sure she did not overwork herself. Lily laughed at his fussing but secretly loved it. The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Lily felt well except for the morning sickness in the early months, which passed by June. Her belly grew round, and Jake loved to place his hand there in the evenings, feeling the baby kick and move. They prepared the second bedroom as a nursery, painting it a soft yellow and building a cradle from pine wood. Martha came to visit in July, staying for a week to help Lily with preparations. She brought baby clothes she had sewn, blankets and booties and little gowns. She also brought advice, much of it welcome and some of it not, but Lily appreciated her aunt's presence and experience. "You are glowing," Martha told Lily one afternoon as they sat on the porch snapping beans. "Motherhood suits you already." "I am scared," Lily admitted. "What if I do not know what to do? What if I am not a good mother?" "Every new mother feels that way. But you have love and you have Jake and you have common sense. That is enough. The rest you will learn." The baby came in October, almost exactly a year after Jake and Lily had married. The labor was long and difficult, lasting through the night and into the next day. The doctor from Wheatland was there, a gruff man named Dr. Henderson, who had delivered half the babies in the county. Jake paced in the next room, listening to Lily's cries and feeling utterly helpless. Finally, in the late afternoon, a new sound filled the house, the cry of a newborn. Dr. Henderson emerged, smiling. "You have a son, Jake, a healthy baby boy, and your wife is tired but fine." Jake rushed into the bedroom. Lily was propped up against the pillows, exhausted but radiant, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in a blue blanket. She looked up at Jake with tears streaming down her face. "Meet your son," she whispered. Jake looked down at the tiny, red, wrinkled face and felt his entire world shift. This was his child, his son. He had helped create this perfect little person. "He is beautiful," Jake said, his voice rough with emotion. "You are amazing." They named him James Matthew Fletcher, after Jake's father and Lily's. Little James, or Jamie as they called him, was a good baby for the most part. He ate well and slept in reasonable stretches, though those first few weeks were exhausting as Jake and Lily adjusted to parenthood. Jake was a devoted father. He changed diapers without complaint, walked the floor with Jamie when he fussed, and stared at his son like he was the greatest wonder in the world. Lily watched her husband with their baby and fell even more deeply in love with him. The years that followed were full and rich. The ranch prospered under Jake's careful management. They bought the adjoining property when it came available, expanding their grazing land significantly. They hired another hand, a young man named David who was hardworking and loyal. Thomas and Robert stayed on, becoming almost like family. Jamie grew into a bright, energetic little boy with his father's dark hair and his mother's green eyes. He loved the ranch, loved following Jake around and trying to help with chores. Lily taught him his letters and numbers, reading to him every night before bed, instilling in him her love of stories. When Jamie was 3, Lily became pregnant again. This time the pregnancy was easier, perhaps because she knew what to expect. The baby, another boy they named Lucas Henry Fletcher, arrived in the spring of 1883. Lucas was different from Jamie, quieter and more contemplative, but just as loved. With 2 young children, life on the ranch was chaotic and wonderful. Jake and Lily worked as a team, supporting each other through the sleepless nights and the endless work. They had their difficult moments, times when money was tight or the weather was harsh, or they were simply exhausted. But they always came back to each other, always remembered what they had. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Jake took Lily back to the meadow where he had proposed. It was November again, cold but clear. They bundled up the boys and rode out together, Jamie on his own pony now and Lucas secure in Jake's arms. "You remember this place?" Jake asked as they dismounted. "Of course I do. This is where you asked me to marry you. I wanted to bring you back here to tell you that I would do it all over again. Every moment, every challenge, every joy. You are still the best thing that ever happened to me, Lily Fletcher." She kissed him, long and sweet. "And you are mine. I was lost when you found me, Jake, lost in every way that matters. And you gave me a home, a family, a life I love. I could never have imagined all this. Jamie tugged on his mother's skirt. Mama, can we have the cookies now? They all laughed, the moment of seriousness broken, and spread out the blanket for their picnic. They ate cookies and drank cold cider, the boys running around and playing while Jake and Lily watched. It was a simple moment, but it was everything. More years passed. The boys grew, the ranch grew, and Jake and Lily's love grew deeper still. They had a daughter in 1886, a little girl they named Sarah Grace, who had Lily's dark hair and Jake's serious expression. Sarah was followed 2 years later by another daughter, Emma Rose, who was all sunshine and mischief from the day she was born. The ranch house had to be expanded to accommodate the growing family. Jake and his hands built an addition, adding 2 more bedrooms and a larger kitchen. The house was always full of noise now, full of children and laughter and life. Lily sometimes thought back to that evening on the trail, when she had been alone and scared and certain she was going to die. She thought about how Jake had appeared like an answer to a prayer she had not even known to say. She thought about the words she had spoken to him, how true they had turned out to be. She had been finding him. All those years of loneliness, all the loss and heartbreak, had been leading her to that trail at sunset, to that moment when everything changed. And he had been finding her too, though neither of them had known it at the time. They had been lost, both of them in their own ways. And they had found each other. One evening when the children were all in bed, Jake and Lily sat on their porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. It was late summer, 1891, and they had been married almost 10 years. Jake's hair had some gray in it now, and Lily had fine lines around her eyes from years of smiling. "What are you thinking about?" Jake asked, taking Lily's hand. "I am thinking about how happy I am, how grateful. This life we have built together, these children, this home. It is everything I never dared to dream of. I know what you mean. Sometimes I look around at all this and I cannot quite believe it is real, that you are real." "I am very real," Lily said with a smile, "and I am not going anywhere. Good. Because I plan to keep you for at least another 50 years. Only 50? Well, longer if you will have me." They sat in comfortable silence, watching as the stars began to emerge. From inside the house came a cry, probably Lucas waking from a bad dream. They both stood automatically, moving together toward the door. "I will go," Jake said. "We will both go," Lily replied. Because that was how they did everything, together. The years continued their steady march. Jamie grew into a tall, responsible young man who loved the ranch as much as his father did. He worked alongside Jake, learning everything about running a cattle operation. Lucas was quieter but no less capable, with a gift for working with horses. Sarah was bright and curious, always reading, always asking questions. And Emma was the heart of the family, always bringing joy and laughter. In 1895, Martha passed away peacefully in her sleep. Lily grieved for her aunt, the woman who had taken her in when she had nowhere else to go, who had given her a chance at a new life. They buried Martha in the Wheatland Cemetery, and Lily inherited the boarding house. They decided to sell it, using the money to fund the children's education and to further improve the ranch. Jake's parents had died before he came west, and he had lost touch with his siblings over the years, but he and Lily created their own family, their own traditions. Christmas was always a big celebration, with a tree that reached the ceiling and presents for all the children. Birthdays were marked with special meals and small gifts. Sunday dinners were sacred. The whole family gathered around the table together. They had their sorrows too. They lost a baby in 1892, Lily miscarrying in the 4th month. It was devastating for both of them, but they held on to each other and their living children, and eventually the acute pain faded to a gentle sadness. In 1897, a harsh winter killed a significant portion of their herd, setting them back financially. But they rebuilt, working harder than ever. Through it all, their love remained constant. Jake still looked at Lily like she was the most beautiful woman in the world. Lily still felt her heart skip when Jake smiled at her. They still held hands when they walked, still kissed goodbye every morning, still talked late into the night about their dreams and fears and everything in between. One afternoon in the spring of 1899, Jake came in from working in the barn to find Lily sitting at the kitchen table with papers spread out before her. She looked up at him, her eyes shining. "What is it?" he asked. "I have been doing the books, going over our finances. Jake, we have done so well. The ranch is profitable, we have money saved, the children are thriving. We did it. We built something real and lasting." Jake sat down next to her, looking at the neat columns of numbers in her handwriting. "We did it together. I could never have done any of this without you, Lily. You made this ranch a home. You made my life worth living. And you saved mine, literally and figuratively. Do you ever think about that day on the trail, all the time? I think about how easily I could have missed you, how different everything would be if I had taken the North Pasture route that evening. But you did not, and I found you just like I said I would." They kissed, slow and sweet, like they had all the time in the world, and they did. They had built a life together, a beautiful life full of love and family and purpose. Jamie married in 1900, a lovely young woman named Catherine from a neighboring ranch. The wedding was held at the Fletcher Ranch, with half of Wyoming territory in attendance, or so it seemed. Jake stood up with his son, fighting back tears as he watched Jamie make the same promises he had made to Lily all those years ago. "I am proud of you," Jake told Jamie after the ceremony. "You have become a fine man." "I learned from the best," Jamie replied. "You and Mama showed me what love and partnership look like. I can only hope Catherine and I have what you two have. You will. Just remember to talk to each other, to really listen. Remember that you are on the same team, and never stop courting her, even after you are married." It was advice Jake had followed himself, advice that had served him well. Even after more than 20 years of marriage, he still brought Lily wildflowers from the meadow. He still told her she was beautiful. He still made time for just the two of them, even with 4 children and a ranch to run. Lucas announced his intention to become a veterinarian, wanting to go to school in Colorado. Jake and Lily supported his dream, though they would miss him terribly. Sarah talked about becoming a teacher, following in her mother's love of learning. Emma was still young, only 11, but she was already showing an interest in music and art. "We raised them right," Lily said one evening as she and Jake watched their children from the porch. Jamie and Catherine were walking hand in hand toward their new cabin on the property. Lucas was working with a young horse in the corral. Sarah was reading to Emma under a tree. "We did," Jake agreed. "They are good people. They will do good things in this world. I hope they find what we found, this kind of love, this kind of partnership." Jake pulled Lily close, kissing the top of her head. "I hope everyone finds what we found, though I am selfish enough to think what we have is special. It is special. It always has been." As the sun set over the Wyoming prairie, painting the sky in brilliant colors, Jake and Lily stood together on the porch of their ranch house, surrounded by the life they had built. 21 years had passed since that evening on the trail, since Jake had found Lily lost and alone, since she had looked up at him and said those prophetic words. "I think I was finding you." She had been right. They had both been lost, both searching for something they could not name. And they had found each other in that moment of grace and destiny. They had found love, partnership, home. They had found everything. The years had brought challenges and sorrows alongside the joys. There had been harsh winters and financial struggles, illness and loss. But there had also been laughter and triumph, 4 beautiful children, and a love that only grew stronger with time. The ranch had prospered under their joint stewardship, becoming one of the most respected operations in the territory. Jake was 53 now, his dark hair liberally streaked with gray, his face weathered by years under the Wyoming sun. But he was still strong, still capable, still the steady presence that Lily had fallen in love with. Lily was 41, her beauty matured but not diminished. She had grown into herself over the years, becoming confident and self-assured in ways that young woman on the trail could never have imagined. Their love had matured too, deepening from that first wild rush of new romance into something richer and more complex. They knew each other completely now, the good and the bad, the strengths and the weaknesses. They had weathered storms together, celebrated victories together, raised children together. They were partners in the truest sense, each making the other better, stronger, more complete. "Do you ever regret it?" Lily asked suddenly. Taking the long trail that evening, Jake looked at her in surprise. "Regret finding you, regret our life together. Never, not for a single moment. Even when I am difficult, even when I nag you about tracking mud in the house." She was teasing now, her eyes sparkling. "Even then, especially then," he kissed her nose. "You are the love of my life, Lily Fletcher. Finding you was the best thing I ever did." "I was so scared that evening," Lily admitted. "I thought I was going to die out there. I had given up hope. And then you appeared and everything changed. We changed each other. You made me believe in fate, in destiny. I had always thought life was just random chance, but finding you the way I did, it had to mean something. It meant we were supposed to be together. That our lives were always heading toward that moment, that trail, that sunset." They stood in comfortable silence, watching as the last light faded from the sky and the stars emerged. From inside the house came the sounds of their family. Catherine setting the table for dinner, Lucas strumming a guitar, Sarah and Emma giggling about something. It was the sound of home, the sound of love. In the years that followed, that sense of completion only grew. Jamie and Catherine had children of their own, giving Jake and Lily grandchildren to dote on. Lucas went to veterinary school and came back to set up a practice in Wheatland, serving the ranchers and farmers of the area. Sarah did become a teacher, running the schoolhouse in town with patience and dedication. Emma surprised everyone by moving to Denver to study music, her beautiful voice taking her places none of them had imagined. Through it all, Jake and Lily remained each other's constant. They aged together, their bodies slowing but their love unchanging. They still held hands, still kissed, still talked for hours. They still made each other laugh. They still made each other feel seen and valued and cherished. On their 30th anniversary, the whole family gathered at the ranch for a celebration. There were children running everywhere, grandchildren climbing on Jake's lap, the house bursting with noise and love. A photographer came from Wheatland to take a family portrait, all of them arranged on the front porch. "Everyone smile," the photographer called out, but Jake was not looking at the camera. He was looking at Lily, at the woman who had transformed his life, who had filled his home with love and laughter. She caught his eye and smiled, that same radiant smile she had given him on the trail all those years ago. Later, when the party was winding down and the children were tucked into various beds around the house, Jake and Lily slipped outside for a walk. The moon was full, illuminating the prairie in silver light. They walked hand in hand toward the barn, their steps synchronized after decades together. 30 years, Lily marveled. Where did the time go? I do not know, but I would not trade a single day of it. Well, maybe that time Lucas broke his arm falling out of the hayloft. That was terrifying. Lily laughed. Or when Emma got sick with scarlet fever and we thought we might lose her. Or any of the 100 other times we were scared out of our minds. But even those days, the hard days, I would not change them, because they are part of our story. Our story, Lily repeated. I like that. We wrote our own story, did we not? Against all odds, against everything that could have gone wrong, we made this beautiful life. We did, and I love our story. I love you. I love you too, Jake Fletcher, today, tomorrow, always. They stood there in the moonlight, two people who had found each other when they both needed it most, who had built a life and a legacy together. The ranch spread out around them, the house full of family, the future bright with promise. Lily thought back to that terrified young woman on the trail, lost and alone and certain she was dying. She thought about how far she had come, how much she had gained. She had found so much more than rescue that evening. She had found her purpose, her home, her family, her true self. And she had found love. The kind of love that sustains and strengthens, that weathers all storms, that grows richer with each passing year. The kind of love that makes life worth living. Jake thought about the solitary cowboy he had been, riding the trails alone, running a ranch with no one to share it with. He thought about how empty his life had been before Lily, how much she had brought to it. She had not just filled his house, she had filled his heart. They walked back to the house together, ready to rejoin their family, ready for whatever the future held. Because they knew that as long as they had each other, they could face anything. They had proven that over and over through 3 decades of marriage. The story that had begun on a dusty trail at sunset had become an epic, spanning years and generations. It was a story of rescue and redemption, of taking chances and building dreams, of family and partnership and enduring love. And it all started because Jake had chosen to take the long trail home one September evening, because Lily had gotten lost at exactly the right moment, because fate or destiny or pure chance had brought them together when they both needed it most. Lily had been right, all those years ago. She had been finding him, just as he had been finding her. Two lost souls, wandering separately until that moment when their paths intersected and everything changed. They had found each other, and in doing so, they had found everything. Years continued to pass in the gentle rhythm of ranch life. Jake and Lily grew old together, their hair turning white, their movements slower but their love undiminished. They watched their children build their own lives, watched their grandchildren grow, and eventually welcomed great-grandchildren into the world. The ranch remained in the family, passed down to Jamie when Jake finally decided to retire. But Jake and Lily stayed in the ranch house, the home they had built together, surrounded by memories of a life well lived. On a warm evening in June 1921, 43 years after they had met on that fateful trail, Jake and Lily sat on their porch watching another sunset. They were old now, both in their 70s, but they still held hands, still looked at each other with love. "Do you remember what you said to me that first evening?" Jake asked, his voice soft with age but still strong. "I said a lot of things. I was babbling from fear and dehydration. You said you thought you were finding me." Lily smiled, the wrinkles around her eyes deepening. "I remember. And I was right, was I not? You were absolutely right. We found each other, and what a life we have had." "The best life," Lily agreed. "I would not change a single thing. Not even the difficult parts, not even those. Because they made us who we are, they made our love stronger." They sat in silence as the sun sank below the horizon, painting the sky in the same gold and crimson hues that had colored that evening so long ago. The prairie stretched out before them, vast and beautiful and home. Jake squeezed Lily's hand. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For getting lost on that trail, for letting me find you, for saying yes, for building this life with me, for loving me all these years, for everything." Lily turned to look at him, her eyes, though faded with age, still that same beautiful green. "I should be thanking you. You saved my life that evening, and you have been saving it every day since. You gave me a home when I had none, a family when I was alone, a love I never thought I would find. You are my everything, Jake Fletcher. And you are mine, Lily Fletcher, always and forever." As the stars began to emerge in the darkening sky, they remained on the porch, hands clasped, hearts intertwined. They had lived a remarkable story, a testament to the power of love and faith in choosing each other every single day. The lost woman on the trail had found her cowboy. The lonely rancher had found his partner. And together, they had built something beautiful and lasting, a legacy of love that would continue long after they were gone. Their great-grandchildren would hear the story, passed down through the generations. The story of how great-grandpa Jake found great-grandma Lily lost on a trail at sunset, how she looked up at him and said, "I think I was finding you," how those words had proven prophetic and profound. It was a love story for the ages, set against the backdrop of the Wild West, full of adventure and hardship and triumph. But at its heart, it was simple. Two people who had found each other at exactly the right moment, who had chosen love and built a life together, who had proven that sometimes getting lost is the first step to being found. Jake and Lily Fletcher lived several more good years together, never spending a night apart, always devoted to each other and their family. When Jake passed peacefully in his sleep at 78, Lily grieved deeply but took comfort in knowing they had loved each other fully and completely for 46 years. She followed him 18 months later, her last words to her gathered family being, "Tell your grandfather I am coming." I was always finding him. They were buried side by side on a hill overlooking the ranch, their graves marked with simple stones that bore their names and one inscription. Two souls who found each other on a trail at sunset and loved forever after. The ranch continued to thrive under Jamie's stewardship and eventually his children's. The Fletcher name became synonymous with integrity and hard work in Wyoming. But more than the land or the cattle or the material success, Jake and Lily's true legacy was the love they had shared, the family they had raised, and the example they had set. They had proven that true love does exist, that it can weather any storm, that it grows richer and deeper with time. They had proven that sometimes you have to get lost to find what you are really looking for. They had proven that the most important journeys are the ones we take together. And it all began on a dusty trail at sunset in September 1878, when a cowboy found a lost woman, and she looked up and said 5 words that would change both their lives forever. "I think I was finding you."